Friends, if you want to watch the super hit movie HIM, 2025, in English, then you must like this video. If you are visiting our channel for the first time, do not forget to subscribe to our channel and stay connected for more updates like this. In today's video, the movie we are going to talk about is called HIM, 2025. We will explore everything you need to know about this highly anticipated release, including its making, where you can watch it, and some fascinating details that will make your viewing experience even better. This film has already attracted a lot of attention from movie lovers and critics around the world, making it one of the most talked about projects of the year. By the end of this video, you will have a complete idea about what this movie is about and what makes it worth your time. HIM, 2025, is a film that combines drama, suspense, and emotion in a way that keeps audiences engaged from start to finish. Before diving into the details, let us first look at the core essence of the story. Without giving away major spoilers, the movie revolves around the life of its main character, who faces unexpected challenges that change the course of his journey. It is a story that delves into human emotions, relationships, and the choices we make under pressure. The narrative is carefully written to keep viewers guessing, while also delivering strong emotional moments that resonate long after the credits roll. The screenplay has been praised for its depth, while the dialogues add authenticity to each scene, making the story flow smoothly from one act to another. Moving towards the technical departments, HIM, 2025, stands out for its impressive cinematography. The film's visuals create a striking atmosphere that enhances the impact of the story. From the lighting techniques to the camera movements, every detail is crafted to serve the mood of the scenes. The production design also deserves appreciation as it successfully builds the world in which the characters exist, whether it is the urban landscapes or the intimate indoor sequences. Costumes and makeup complement the overall aesthetic, staying true to the tone of the film. The sound design, paired with a compelling background score, adds layers of tension and emotion to key moments. The music of the film, both the original score and songs, plays an important role in establishing its identity. Each piece of music has been thoughtfully placed to elevate the storytelling, and some tracks are already gaining popularity among audiences. In terms of production, HIM, 2025, had an interesting journey. Pre-production began with extensive planning, location scouting, and casting to ensure that the final product would meet the director's vision. Filming took place over several months and involved both indoor and outdoor shoots. The team worked through various challenges, including weather conditions and logistical hurdles, but managed to maintain the quality throughout the process. Post-production was equally meticulous, with careful editing, sound mixing, and visual effects that enhanced certain scenes without overshadowing the natural performances of the actors. The film was completed on schedule and moved to its marketing phase with strategic promotions across different platforms. Its budget was significant, yet the filmmakers managed resources effectively to ensure that every dollar was used to strengthen the final result. Early reports about its box office potential suggest that it is on track to perform well, attracting audiences both locally and internationally. Now coming to the performances, the star cast of HIM, 2025, delivers remarkable work. Each actor brings depth to their respective roles, making the characters memorable and relatable. The lead actor carries the film with a compelling portrayal that balances vulnerability and strength. Supporting actors also shine in their moments, with some standout performances that leave a lasting impression. The chemistry between the cast members adds authenticity to the relationships portrayed on screen. Critics have particularly noted the emotional range displayed in key scenes, making this film not just a visual treat but also a performance-driven experience. As for the story overview, without revealing too much, the film follows the journey of its central character as he faces a series of life-altering events. These challenges push him to make difficult decisions, confront his past, and reshape his future. The plot keeps a balance between fast-paced sequences and slower, more reflective moments, creating a rhythm that holds your attention. The themes explored in the film include love, sacrifice, redemption, and the power of choice, which are universally relatable. In short, HIM, 2025, is a movie that offers a complete cinematic package with strong storytelling, impressive visuals, powerful performances, and a well-executed production. Whether you are a fan of drama or suspense, this film is likely to deliver an engaging experience. If you want to enjoy the full impact of this film, make sure to watch it in high quality with proper sound for the best experience. Stay tuned till the end of this video as we will continue to share more details and interesting facts about this remarkable movie. HIM is a 2025 sports horror film that fuses the high-stakes world of professional football with psychological terror, directed by Justin Tipping and produced by Monkey Paw Productions with Jordan Peele among the producers, a collaboration that positions the movie at the intersection of genre thrills and social psychological commentary. The central story follows Cameron Cade, a driven young athlete played by Tyriq Withers, whose identity is entirely bound up in his football career, and Isaiah White, a legendary veteran quarterback portrayed by Marlon Wayans, whose mentor role slowly reveals corrosive and dangerous depths. Julia Fox appears as Elsie White, Isaiah's celebrity influencer wife, and the supporting ensemble includes Tim Heidecker, Jim Jeffries, MMA heavyweight Maurice Green, and music artists Guapdad 4000 Era Whack among others. The narrative begins on the eve of the professional scouting combine when Cam is viciously attacked by an unhinged fan and sustains a potentially career-ending brain trauma, a calamity that renders his future uncertain and opens the door for an intervention from the very man he idolized as a child. Out of apparent goodwill and starstruck gratitude, Isaiah invites Cam to his isolated compound for an intensive, almost cult-like regimen of training, a retreat that the film uses to explore how devotion to greatness can become coercive and dehumanizing. As Cam's rehabilitation accelerates under Isaiah's tutelage, the mentorship that once seemed like a second chance morphs into a disturbing project in which power, celebrity, and the pursuit of excellence demand ever greater sacrifices, and the script deliberately tightens the screws on Cam's sense of self until the lines between recovery and submission become perilously blurred. The marketing and early trailers emphasize unsettling, visceral imagery that suggests more than simple psychological manipulation, and commentators and reporters have raised the possibility that the compound hides rituals or experimental practices that literalize the film's thesis about the costs of becoming the greatest, though those specifics remain tantalizingly unconfirmed in official materials. Behind the scenes, HIM began life as a script originally titled GOAT that made the black list of favorite unproduced screenplays in 2022 before being acquired by Monkey Paw, and the finished film credits Zach Akers and Skip Bronke alongside Justin Tipping on the screenplay with production handled by industry names associated with socially minded horror, signaling a careful hand in balancing genre scares with cultural commentary. Tonally, the film blends tense training sequences with slow-building dread and increasingly violent set pieces, using the isolation of the compound and the charismatic menace of Isaiah to create a pressure cooker in which Cam's ambitions are weaponized against his autonomy, and the story pays close attention to how fandom, idolatry, and institutional power interact in modern sports culture. Performances are positioned as a central draw, with reviewers and promotional coverage highlighting Marlon Wayans' turn as unusually dramatic and unsettling for an actor best known for comedy, and Tyriq Withers tasked with a physical and emotional arc that requires him to sell both the athlete's obsession and the young man's gradual unmooring. The film runs under roughly 100 minutes and is scheduled for a wide theatrical release on September 19, 2025, distributed by Universal Pictures, and it carries an R rating for strong bloody violence, language, sexual material, nudity, and some drug use, all of which indicate that the film intends to confront viewers with intense, unflinching images rather than shy away from the horror elements embedded in its sports setting. In sum, HIM frames a compact but potent parable about the price of greatness that uses the rituals of athletic training as a vehicle for horror, layering character work, tense isolation sequences, and provocative thematic questions about influence and sacrifice. And while plot details beyond the official synopsis are being kept deliberately scarce, the available materials and early reporting make clear that the film aims to be both a nightmare about fandom and a cautionary tale about what people will surrender in the pursuit of legendary status. HIM, 2025, opens with a tense and foreboding introduction that immediately establishes the world of professional football and the pressures faced by young athletes. The first images focus on Cameron Cade, a talented and ambitious player whose identity is deeply intertwined with his sport. From the start, we see Cam's dedication, his intense training routines, and the admiration he holds for veteran quarterback Isaiah White, a legend whose career and charisma have inspired countless young athletes. The opening sequences set up both the physical stakes of the sport and the psychological weight carried by those chasing greatness, giving viewers a clear understanding of the high-pressure environment that drives the story. The early moments also introduce secondary characters such as Elsie White, Isaiah's influential and glamorous wife, whose presence hints at the blurred lines between celebrity, power, and personal influence. The inciting incident occurs when Cam is brutally attacked by an unstable fan just before the professional scouting combine. This attack leaves him with a severe brain injury, threatening to end his career before it truly begins. This moment functions as the story's catalyst, forcing Cam into a vulnerable position and creating a narrative tension that carries through the entire film. It also introduces the first moral and emotional dilemmas, as Cam must grapple with fear, self-doubt, and the temptation to rely on external figures to reclaim his potential. The incident sets the stage for Isaiah's intervention, which initially seems like a lifeline but gradually reveals a more complex and dangerous dynamic. Isaiah invites Cam to his private, secluded compound under the guise of intensive training and mentorship. The rising action unfolds as Cam undergoes a physically demanding and psychologically manipulative program. Scenes of rigorous workouts and discipline are interspersed with moments that reveal Isaiah's control over Cam's environment, choices, and even perceptions of success. The narrative alternates between linear progression and selective revelations that deepen the suspense, showing Cam's improvement alongside growing unease about Isaiah's intentions. Key emotional peaks arise here, particularly in interactions where Cam begins to question the boundaries of mentorship and the sacrifices he is being asked to make. Small details, such as isolated conversations or subtle visual cues, signal that Cam's autonomy is under threat, heightening the tension and making each triumph in training feel ambiguous. Mid-film, the story pivots with a series of unsettling discoveries about the compound and Isaiah's true motivations. Cam uncovers signs of extreme methods that go beyond ordinary training, which forces him to reconcile admiration with fear. This turning point shifts the narrative from a straightforward story of recovery to one of psychological horror, where power dynamics, identity, and ambition collide. The filmmakers strategically withhold certain information, creating ambiguity about how far Isaiah's influence reaches and what Cam might be willing to endure. Scenes such as late-night confrontations, secretive behaviors, and unexpected threats heighten suspense, reinforcing the sense that the environment itself is an active antagonist. These moments also allow viewers to connect emotionally with Cam, experiencing his growing paranoia and moral uncertainty firsthand. The finale brings the story to a tense and dramatic resolution. Cam must confront Isaiah and make choices that determine not only his physical future but also his sense of self. The narrative resolves the central conflict between ambition and autonomy, often using high-stakes confrontations and emotionally charged sequences to deliver catharsis. In the closing beats, the film carefully balances closure with ambiguity, allowing viewers to reflect on the psychological journey they have witnessed. Key scenes in the finale emphasize both Cam's resilience and the lingering impact of the mentorship that shaped him, highlighting the thematic concerns about power, influence, and the cost of pursuing greatness. Throughout the film, narrative techniques such as selective time reveals, close-up shots of emotional moments, and a focus on the psychological states of characters ensure that viewers remain invested in both plot and character development. The story carefully places turning points and emotional peaks to maximize engagement, while leaving room for interpretation about the limits of control and the price of ambition. Scenes like Cam's initial recovery struggles, tense training exercises, confrontations with Isaiah, and moments of introspection are all essential for understanding the journey, making HIM, 2025, a film that combines sports drama with psychological horror in a tightly crafted, immersive narrative experience. In HIM, 2025, character development plays a central role in shaping the story and maintaining audience engagement. The protagonist, Cameron Cade, is introduced as a young, talented athlete whose entire identity is tied to football. At the beginning of the movie, Cam is ambitious, determined, and somewhat naive about the pressures of professional sports and the influence of celebrity culture. His primary goal is to recover from a life-threatening injury and secure a place in professional football, but his ambition also makes him vulnerable to manipulation. Early in the film, small details, like his insistence on pushing through pain and his deference to veteran athletes, signal his drive and the depth of his idolization for Isaiah White. These traits are crucial for understanding his journey because they establish both his strengths and the psychological vulnerabilities that the antagonist will exploit. Isaiah White, the veteran quarterback, functions as both mentor and antagonist. At first glance, he appears generous and supportive, offering guidance and a path to recovery for Cam. However, as the story progresses, it becomes clear that Isaiah represents control, power, and the darker side of ambition. His motivations are complex. He desires to shape Cam into an idealized version of success while simultaneously asserting dominance over someone who idolizes him. Subtle gestures, such as an approving nod or a seemingly casual reprimand, reveal Isaiah's manipulative tendencies and his ability to influence Cam without overtly coercing him. Scenes where he sets extreme challenges or isolates Cam underscore his psychological dominance, making him an antagonist whose presence is both magnetic and threatening. By the end of the film, Isaiah remains largely unchanged in his worldview, highlighting the danger of unchecked influence and the rigidity of his ego. Cam's arc is the most pronounced in the film, and the narrative carefully charts his transformation. Initially, he is dependent on external validation and the authority of his mentor. As he experiences the pressures and moral compromises of the compound, he begins to question his choices and the true cost of his ambition. Key scenes, such as moments of introspection in his private quarters or tense confrontations with Isaiah, reveal internal shifts in his character. These beats are subtle but significant, often conveyed through body language, facial expressions, or small dialogues rather than explicit exposition. By the climax, Cam demonstrates growth by asserting autonomy and making decisions based on his own principles, signaling a shift from passive follower to an individual capable of resisting manipulation. Elsie White, Isaiah's wife, serves as both a supporting character and a mirror for the themes of influence and identity. She is introduced as a glamorous, influential figure whose life is intertwined with Isaiah's public persona. Initially, her character appears peripheral, but her interactions with Cam and Isaiah offer insights into the consequences of power and celebrity culture. Lines of dialogue or fleeting gestures, like an expression of concern or subtle disapproval, hint at her awareness of the moral complexities at play. Though she does not undergo a dramatic transformation, her presence amplifies the stakes for Cam and illustrates how surrounding characters contribute meaningfully to the protagonist's journey. Secondary characters, including Tim Heidecker, Jim Jeffries, and other members of the compound, function to enrich the environment and emphasize the psychological tension. Each one has a role that either challenges or supports Cam's development. For example, minor confrontations or alliances illustrate the pressures of conformity, loyalty, and trust within the high-stakes setting. These characters, while not deeply explored individually, act as foils that reveal different facets of the protagonist's personality and ethical boundaries. Throughout the film, character development is reinforced through narrative choices and visual storytelling. The filmmakers use close-ups, framing, and pacing to emphasize emotional beats, ensuring that viewers can track growth or regression without relying solely on dialogue. Cam's evolving relationship with Isaiah, the subtle cues from Elsie, and interactions with side characters collectively create a dynamic character landscape. By the film's conclusion, the audience can witness both the tangible changes in Cam and the static, imposing presence of Isaiah, which together highlight the central themes of control, ambition, and personal resilience. HIM, 2025, demonstrates that thoughtful character construction is essential not only for plot progression but also for creating a compelling, emotionally resonant cinematic experience. In HIM, 2025, the performances are a central element that elevates the film, with several actors fully inhabiting their roles and creating memorable, intense moments on screen. Tyriq Withers, who plays Cameron Cade, anchors the movie with a performance that blends physicality with emotional vulnerability. From the earliest scenes, Withers conveys Cam's ambition and determination through posture, gestures, and subtle facial expressions. His dedication to portraying the physical rigor of a professional athlete is evident in every training sequence, while quieter moments, such as private reflections and confrontations with Isaiah, reveal a deeper psychological complexity. Withers' ability to balance the external pressures of the sports world with the internal tension of fear, doubt, and resilience makes him a compelling lead and keeps the audience invested in Cam's journey throughout the film. Marlon Wayans delivers a strikingly different but equally vital performance as Isaiah White. Known primarily for his work in comedy, Wayans transforms into a menacing, charismatic figure who dominates nearly every scene he is in. His timing and vocal control are key to creating Isaiah's subtle menace. A simple inflection or pause can turn what seems like guidance into a threatening assertion of control. Wayans' physical presence, combined with an unsettling calmness in high-stakes moments, establishes a tension that is both magnetic and terrifying. Certain scenes, such as late-night confrontations or intense training sessions, showcase his ability to oscillate between charm and intimidation, making Isaiah a memorable antagonist whose influence lingers even when off-screen. Julia Fox, portraying Elsie White, provides a layered performance that complements the central narrative. Her portrayal of a glamorous yet perceptive spouse adds depth to the dynamics of the compound. Fox excels in conveying subtle emotional cues, such as concern or skepticism, often through small gestures or nuanced expressions rather than overt dialogue. Her presence in key scenes highlights the moral and social undercurrents in the story, and she effectively demonstrates the consequences of living within a high-profile, controlled environment. Though she is not at the center of the conflict, Fox's performance enhances the film's tension and contributes to the protagonist's emotional arc. Supporting actors including Tim Heidecker, Jim Jeffries, Maurice Green, Guapdad 4000, and Tierra Whack, each bring distinct energy that enriches the story world. Heidecker and Jeffries offer moments of comic relief that are carefully balanced with the film's darker themes, ensuring that lighter beats do not undermine the overall tension. Their timing and delivery create contrast that amplifies the psychological stakes faced by Cam. Meanwhile, Green, Guapdad 4000, and Tierra Whack contribute to the physical and emotional realism of the compound, whether through training sequences or brief, pivotal interactions. Even small gestures, such as a supportive nod or a tense stare, serve to reflect the pressures of the environment and reinforce Cam's struggles. One of the film's strengths lies in the chemistry between Withers and Wayans. Their interactions are electric, with each scene carefully constructed to highlight power dynamics, admiration, and manipulation. Timing is critical. The push and pull between mentor and protege is conveyed through body language, eye contact, and pauses that allow tension to simmer. Scenes that might otherwise feel standard are elevated by their interplay, turning simple lines into charged exchanges that communicate layers of trust, fear, and dependency. The actors' commitment to physical realism in training and confrontational scenes further grounds their performances, making the stakes feel immediate and believable. There are moments in HIM where even strong writing is slightly undermined by minor inconsistencies in supporting performances. A few brief scenes show hesitation or lack of cohesion in tone, which can momentarily pull viewers out of the tension. However, these instances are rare and do little to diminish the overall impact of the lead and primary supporting performances. The principal cast consistently turns written beats into living, breathing emotion, whether through monologues, confrontations, or quieter reflective moments, and their work ensures that the film resonates emotionally with the audience. Overall, HIM, 2025, benefits from a cast that embraces both the psychological and physical demands of the story. Tyriq Withers anchors the film with a compelling and emotionally rich performance, Marlon Wayans dominates with charisma and menace, and Julia Fox adds depth and nuance. The supporting ensemble contributes to the realism and tension, creating a fully immersive environment. Through timing, physicality, vocal control, and on-screen chemistry, the performers transform the screenplay into a gripping, emotionally charged cinematic experience that lingers long after the credits roll. In HIM, 2025, director Justin Tipping demonstrates a distinct vision that influences nearly every aspect of the film, from narrative pacing to visual style, creating a cohesive experience that blends psychological tension with sports drama. Tipping's approach to storytelling is deliberate, favoring a measured build-up of suspense that mirrors the internal and external pressures faced by the protagonist, Cameron Cade. The opening sequences establish this tone, combining tight framing with carefully controlled lighting to create an immediate sense of intensity and focus. These choices immediately communicate to the audience that the story is not simply about athletic achievement, but about the psychological cost of ambition and idolization. Tipping's pacing throughout the film is notable for its balance between rapid, high-energy sequences and slower, more contemplative moments. Training montages, football drills, and physically demanding sequences are edited with a rhythm that conveys both exertion and progression, allowing the audience to feel the strain and growth of Cam's character. These sequences are punctuated by quieter scenes, often set in the isolated compound, where tension is drawn out through lingering shots, careful use of silence, and close-ups that capture subtle expressions of fear, doubt, or resolve. This interplay between action and stillness demonstrates Tipping's understanding of tonal contrast and his ability to manipulate audience engagement through tempo. Stylistically, Tipping favors a mixture of long tracking shots and atmospheric close-ups that immerse viewers in the world of the characters. Tracking shots often follow Cam during workouts or moments of movement, creating a sense of continuity and fluidity that makes the physical environment feel immediate and oppressive at the same time. Close-ups, particularly in scenes of introspection or confrontation, serve to heighten emotional intensity, drawing the audience into the psychological states of the characters. Tipping's use of lighting, often casting shadows or using stark contrasts, amplifies the unsettling atmosphere, subtly signaling moments of tension or danger before they fully unfold. This visual language helps reinforce the themes of control, influence, and the psychological manipulation at the heart of the story. The staging of scenes is another area where Tipping's directorial control is evident. He carefully arranges characters within the frame to communicate power dynamics, relationships, and emotional distance. For example, interactions between Cam and Isaiah are frequently framed to emphasize the imbalance of authority, with Cam often positioned lower or physically constrained, while Isaiah occupies commanding space. These choices are not accidental, they visually reinforce the narrative's thematic concerns without relying solely on dialogue. Similarly, the use of the compound itself as a confined, almost claustrophobic setting reflects the psychological entrapment experienced by Cam, showcasing Tipping's ability to integrate environment and story in service of character development. Tipping's guidance of actors is also a key factor in the film's effectiveness. Performances are tightly calibrated, with nuanced expressions and physicality that align with the director's vision. He elicits moments of understated tension as well as explosive confrontation, ensuring that each scene carries emotional weight. The interplay between leads, particularly Tyriq Withers and Marlon Wayans, benefits from Tipping's careful attention to timing and interaction, allowing the chemistry and power dynamics to feel authentic and charged. Even supporting characters are directed with precision, their movements and reactions contributing to the overall sense of an environment where every action carries consequence. While most directorial choices reinforce the film's cohesion, there are moments where pacing or abrupt shifts in tone slightly interrupt flow. Certain transitions between high-intensity training sequences and narrative exposition can feel jarring, though these instances are minimal and do not significantly detract from the overall impact. In some cases, stylistic experimentation, such as sudden camera angles or quick cuts, risks disorienting the viewer, but these choices also reflect Tipping's willingness to push visual boundaries in service of psychological tension. Overall, Justin Tipping's direction in HIM, 2025, shapes the film's identity in fundamental ways. Through careful control of pacing, visual composition, scene staging, and actor guidance, he creates a cohesive and immersive experience that blends sports drama with psychological horror. His stylistic signatures, tracking shots, close-ups, and deliberate lighting, enhance the emotional resonance of key scenes, while confident directorial decisions consistently reinforce the story's themes of ambition, influence, and the cost of greatness. Even minor lapses in flow are overshadowed by the director's overall ability to craft a tightly structured, emotionally charged cinematic journey that remains compelling from opening frame to final beat. In HIM, 2025, cinematography plays a crucial role in shaping the film's atmosphere, tone, and emotional impact. The camera work, framing, lighting, and color palette all work together to create a visual language that enhances both the narrative and the psychological tension at the core of the story. From the opening sequences, the cinematography establishes a sense of intensity and immersion, immediately placing viewers into the high-pressure world of professional football while also hinting at the psychological challenges that Cam, the protagonist, will face. Wide shots of the field and training environments convey scale, showing the physical demands and the competitive atmosphere, while tighter framing on characters' faces communicates intimacy, anxiety, and the subtle nuances of their emotional states. Camera movement is one of the film's standout elements, effectively mirroring the story's tension and character dynamics. Tracking shots follow Cam through workouts, compound corridors, and training sessions, creating a sense of continuous motion that mirrors his relentless pursuit of excellence and the constant pressure he experiences. These fluid movements allow the audience to feel physically present in the environment, emphasizing both the intensity and the isolation of his journey. In contrast, handheld and slightly shaky shots are used in moments of vulnerability or danger, particularly during confrontations or scenes where Cam begins to question Isaiah's intentions. This choice enhances immediacy and unease, making viewers feel the protagonist's uncertainty and psychological strain. Framing and composition are carefully crafted to underline themes and relationships. Scenes between Cam and Isaiah frequently employ asymmetric framing, placing Cam in the lower or off-center part of the frame while Isaiah occupies a dominant position. This visual strategy communicates the imbalance of power and the tension inherent in their mentor-protégé relationship without relying solely on dialogue. Similarly, wide establishing shots of the compound emphasize its isolation, with empty space surrounding the characters to convey both physical and psychological confinement. Intimate close-ups are reserved for moments of internal reflection or emotional confrontation, drawing attention to subtle expressions, gestures, and reactions that reveal the inner life of the characters. Lighting and color palette are integral to the film's mood and narrative signaling. The cinematography often employs high-contrast lighting, with shadows and selective illumination emphasizing suspense and the duality of character intentions. Scenes in the compound feature cooler tones and subdued lighting that reflect the oppressive and controlled environment, whereas outdoor sequences, training montages, and moments of triumph use brighter, warmer lighting to contrast freedom, energy, and hope. This careful manipulation of light not only enhances visual interest but also reinforces the emotional and thematic beats of the story, highlighting shifts in tension and character states. Color grading is subtle yet impactful, creating a cohesive visual aesthetic that supports the narrative. Muted tones dominate the film's interior sequences, emphasizing the psychological pressure and the unsettling nature of the compound. Occasional splashes of saturated colors, such as in wardrobe choices or background details, draw attention to key moments or objects, creating a visual cue for the audience to focus on particular narrative elements. The color palette thus functions as more than decoration, actively guiding viewers' perception of mood and narrative significance. Several standout shots in HIM, 2025, linger in the memory due to their composition and emotional resonance. Tracking sequences during workouts create a sense of endurance and struggle, while dramatic close-ups during confrontations capture the subtle interplay of fear, control, and defiance. The cinematography uses perspective creatively, often placing viewers in Cam's point of view to increase empathy and engagement. Scenes that juxtapose isolation with the grandeur of the football world effectively underline the thematic tension between ambition and personal autonomy. Overall, the cinematography in HIM, 2025, is essential to the film's impact. It does more than decorate the story. It actively shapes the viewer's experience, conveying scale, intimacy, tension, and psychological nuance. Through framing, camera movement, lighting, and color choices, the cinematographer ensures that each shot communicates mood and character state, enhancing both narrative clarity and emotional engagement. The careful visual composition leaves a lasting impression, making HIM a film where the imagery continues to resonate long after the credits roll. In HIM, 2025, editing plays a pivotal role in establishing tension, controlling narrative flow, and shaping the audience's emotional experience. The film uses a combination of smooth transitions, deliberate montages, and carefully timed cuts to balance the physical intensity of athletic sequences with the psychological complexity of the story. From the opening scenes, the editing establishes a rhythm that mirrors Cameron Cade's journey, alternating between rapid high-energy sequences that reflect physical exertion and slower, more introspective moments that allow viewers to connect with his internal struggles. This careful management of pacing ensures that tension builds steadily while giving audiences space to absorb character development and thematic nuances. Montages are particularly effective in HIM, especially during training and rehabilitation sequences. The editors condense hours of grueling workouts into concise sequences that convey progress, struggle, and endurance without overstaying their welcome. These montages use rhythmic cutting to maintain momentum, integrating close-ups, wide shots, and tracking sequences in a way that feels both dynamic and immersive. By compressing time effectively, the film communicates Cam's transformation and the escalating demands of his environment, keeping viewers engaged while reinforcing narrative stakes. Music and ambient sound are also integrated into these sequences, further amplifying the emotional impact and giving the audience a sense of both triumph and mounting pressure. Cross-cutting and selective time shifts are used sparingly but with strong effect. The narrative occasionally juxtaposes scenes of Cam's training with moments of vulnerability or confrontation, heightening suspense and emphasizing the psychological stakes. These transitions are designed to create tension without confusing the viewer, allowing the story to remain clear while suggesting the growing instability within the compound. Flashbacks or brief reflections are used strategically, providing context to Cam's ambitions and fears, but the film largely relies on linear progression, trusting the audience to absorb changes in character and circumstance through visual cues and dialogue rather than heavy-handed exposition. This restrained approach to time manipulation contributes to the film's suspenseful tone, as the audience is gradually exposed to the psychological pressures without knowing precisely what lies ahead. The pacing across acts is carefully calibrated. The first act establishes characters, environment, and stakes at a measured pace, giving viewers time to understand Cam's ambitions, vulnerabilities, and the dynamics of his relationship with Isaiah. In the second act, the pace accelerates during training montages, confrontations, and sequences that reveal Isaiah's increasingly controlling behavior. The editing tightens, with shorter cuts and more rapid alternation between sequences to convey urgency, tension, and the intensifying psychological pressure on Cam. By the third act, editing choices emphasize moments of confrontation and climax, with cuts that heighten suspense and create a sense of immediacy in pivotal scenes, ensuring that viewers remain emotionally invested in the resolution. Silence and restraint are also key tools in the editing strategy. Several sequences allow tension to simmer without dialogue or rapid cuts, relying on lingering shots and natural sound to communicate unease, anticipation, or moral ambiguity. These quiet moments contrast with the more frenetic sequences, creating a dynamic rhythm that keeps the audience on edge. The editor's ability to balance silence with action-oriented cuts demonstrates a sophisticated understanding of narrative tension and emotional impact. While the editing is largely effective, there are a few moments where transitions between high-intensity sequences and slower, reflective scenes feel slightly abrupt, occasionally interrupting the narrative flow. These minor inconsistencies do not significantly detract from the overall experience but suggest that a slightly more fluid rhythm in certain passages could have enhanced clarity or emotional resonance. Nevertheless, the majority of cuts are precise, purposeful, and aligned with the director's vision, amplifying both physical and psychological stakes throughout the film. Overall, the editing and pacing in HIM, 2025, are integral to its success. Through rhythmic montages, cross-cutting, selective time manipulation, and the careful use of silence, the film maintains tension and engagement while allowing character development to unfold naturally. The editors skillfully manage momentum across acts, ensuring that emotional peaks land effectively and that the audience remains invested in Cam's journey. By combining restraint with dynamic cutting when necessary, the editing enhances both the psychological horror and sports drama elements of the story, creating a tightly controlled cinematic experience that is immersive, suspenseful, and emotionally compelling. In HIM, 2025, the soundtrack and score are essential components that heighten tension, underscore emotion, and reinforce the narrative's psychological intensity. The music operates almost as a character in its own right, guiding the audience through Cameron Cade's physical challenges, emotional struggles, and the oppressive atmosphere of the compound. From the opening scenes, the score establishes a tone of unease, using low, brooding motifs that foreshadow the psychological and physical trials to come. These motifs recur throughout the film, subtly reminding viewers of the stakes and creating a continuous thread that binds the story together. The score expertly manipulates tension in key sequences, particularly during training montages and confrontations with Isaiah White. Pulsing rhythms and dissonant harmonies accompany intense workouts, amplifying both physical exertion and the psychological pressure Cam experiences. The music rises and falls in sync with the editing, emphasizing moments of triumph, struggle, or impending danger. In quieter sequences, the score often retreats, using sparse instrumentation or near silence to highlight vulnerability, isolation, or moral ambiguity. This contrast between sound and silence gives the audience space to process Cam's emotions and the narrative stakes, making the musical design a subtle but powerful storytelling tool. Licensed music also plays an important role, particularly in moments that reflect contemporary culture or character personality. Songs are strategically placed to reinforce the social and celebrity dimensions of the story, often appearing in scenes that involve public appearances, media interactions, or casual moments in the compound. These tracks provide a tonal shift from the brooding score, reminding viewers of the real-world context surrounding Cam and Isaiah while offering emotional or thematic commentary. The combination of original score and carefully selected licensed tracks ensures that the film maintains both narrative coherence and emotional impact. Recurring motifs and musical cues are closely tied to character and theme. For Cam, certain melodic phrases appear during moments of doubt, reflection, or personal breakthrough, subtly signaling his internal journey without explicit exposition. Isaiah is often accompanied by low, ominous tones or tense rhythmic patterns that reinforce his controlling presence and the danger inherent in his mentorship. These sonic cues allow the audience to anticipate shifts in power dynamics or emotional tension, creating a layer of psychological engagement that complements the visual storytelling. The soundtrack also heightens the impact of pivotal confrontations. For example, in late-night confrontations or moments of moral choice, the music intensifies in a measured way, underscoring the stakes and emotional weight without overwhelming the scene. Conversely, in moments of deception or subtle manipulation, the score may rely on tension-building motifs or unresolved harmonic patterns, keeping the audience uneasy and attentive to the unfolding drama. These choices reflect a sophisticated understanding of timing and emotional pacing, allowing music to manipulate suspense and amplify the psychological dimensions of the narrative. Silence and restraint are equally important. Certain sequences are deliberately underscored by minimal or absent music, forcing viewers to focus on dialogue, gestures, or ambient sound. This approach is particularly effective in scenes of introspection or moral ambiguity, where even a small musical intrusion could dilute the impact. The interplay between sound, silence, and music creates a dynamic auditory landscape that mirrors the film's emotional peaks and valleys, ensuring that every scene feels deliberate and purposeful. There are moments when the score approaches a heavier, more dramatic tone, risking overstatement, but these instances are rare and generally coincide with climactic sequences where heightened emotion is justified. More often, the music enhances subtlety and psychological nuance, lifting scenes from engaging to unforgettable. Whether through recurring motifs, tension-building rhythms, or strategic silence, the soundtrack and score provide cohesion and emotional depth, ensuring that the audience is fully immersed in both Cam's journey and the unsettling environment around him. Overall, the music in HIM, 2025, is integral to its storytelling, functioning as a companion to character development, narrative pacing, and visual composition. By blending original scoring with carefully chosen licensed tracks and employing recurring motifs, the film's sound design amplifies tension, highlights emotion, and reinforces thematic concerns. The result is a sonic landscape that elevates key scenes, deepens character arcs, and leaves a lasting impression, making the soundtrack and score a vital part of the film's identity. HIM, 2025, operates on multiple thematic layers, using the surface story of professional football and psychological horror to explore deeper questions about identity, power, control, and ambition. At its core, the film examines how personal ambition can become both a motivator and a trap, showing the ways in which young athletes like Cameron Cade define themselves entirely through external validation. Cam's journey reflects the struggle to reconcile personal identity with societal expectations and the idolization of figures like Isaiah White, whose power and influence are intoxicating but also potentially corrosive. From the opening scenes, the tension between self-perception and imposed identity is evident, as Cam's confidence and skill are juxtaposed with moments of vulnerability and self-doubt. This theme is reinforced visually through framing, isolation, and the oppressive atmosphere of the compound, demonstrating that identity is shaped as much by environment and relationships as by internal drive. Power is another central theme, explored primarily through Isaiah White's dominance over Cam. The film examines how authority can be wielded in both overt and subtle ways, showing that control is rarely absolute but often psychologically pervasive. Isaiah's mentorship begins as seemingly benevolent guidance but gradually morphs into coercion, reflecting a commentary on the seductive and destructive nature of power. Through visual storytelling, such as framing Cam beneath Isaiah or using shadows to emphasize looming presence, the film communicates power dynamics without heavy-handed exposition. These choices allow viewers to feel the imbalance and tension, making the theme of control emotionally tangible rather than purely conceptual. The narrative also engages with the theme of fear, both fear of failure and fear of losing oneself. Cam's injury and subsequent vulnerability place him in a position where fear drives decisions, exposing how easily ambition can be manipulated by external forces. The film uses silence, pacing, and psychological cues to heighten this tension, showing that fear is both a motivator and a weapon. Scenes where Cam hesitates, questions authority, or experiences moral conflict highlight how fear can shape behavior, illustrating the broader consequences of high-pressure environments on personal ethics and decision-making. Ambition and sacrifice are interwoven with these themes, emphasizing the personal cost of pursuing greatness. HIM portrays the rigorous demands of professional sports not merely as physical challenges, but as tests of character and moral resilience. Cam's progress is marked by both achievement and compromise, showing that ambition can blur the line between personal growth and exploitation. The visual motif of isolation, whether through empty training facilities or controlled spaces within the compound, underscores the sacrifices required and the loneliness that often accompanies intense dedication. Redemption and self-realization emerge subtly, particularly in Cam's arc toward autonomy and self-definition. The film suggests that true growth involves recognizing manipulation, asserting independence, and reclaiming agency, rather than simply achieving external success. This theme is conveyed less through dialogue and more through action, choices, and visual emphasis on Cam's decisions in critical moments. These sequences provide thematic closure, demonstrating that redemption is an internal process shaped by personal insight and courage rather than external validation. HIM also comments on celebrity culture, idolization, and the influence of public figures, showing how the allure of fame can distort relationships and decision-making. The compound itself functions as a microcosm of this dynamic, with Cam idolizing Isaiah and being both inspired and manipulated by his presence. Subtle interactions, gestures, and staging communicate these ideas, reinforcing the notion that admiration without critical awareness can be dangerous. While the film explores these themes consistently, it also leaves room for interpretation, particularly regarding the balance between ambition and ethics, and the degree to which Cam is responsible for his choices versus being manipulated. Certain narrative ambiguities, such as the exact nature of Isaiah's methods or the consequences of specific actions, invite viewers to reflect on the broader implications, making the thematic exploration richer and more layered. Overall, HIM, 2025, wrestles with identity, power, fear, ambition, and redemption, using both narrative and visual storytelling to reinforce its core messages. Through careful framing, atmosphere, pacing, and character interaction, the film conveys these ideas in ways that resonate emotionally and intellectually, providing a cinematic experience that is as thought-provoking as it is suspenseful. It is a meditation on the cost of greatness, the dangers of idolization, and the struggle to maintain autonomy in environments where ambition and influence collide. In HIM, 2025, visual effects and CGI are used sparingly but purposefully, primarily to enhance realism, heighten tension, and support the storytelling rather than to showcase spectacle. The film leans heavily on practical effects for physical sequences, particularly in sports and training scenes, where actors' movements and stunts are captured in real time. This approach grounds the story in authenticity, making Cameron Cade's struggles and triumphs feel tangible and immediate. Practical effects are complemented by subtle digital enhancements, such as blood, minor injury effects, or environmental adjustments, which are seamlessly integrated to maintain immersion. The combination of practical and digital effects ensures that the physicality of the story remains convincing while allowing for controlled cinematic exaggeration when necessary. CGI is most noticeable in sequences where injuries or intense physical contact occur, particularly during football scenes or the attack that initiates Cam's journey. These effects are carefully composited to blend with live-action footage, maintaining realism without feeling artificial or overdone. Motion capture is not heavily relied upon, as the film emphasizes real performances, but minor enhancements, such as augmenting the force or impact of certain actions, are applied digitally to heighten tension. The result is a visual language that preserves the believability of the physical world while amplifying moments of high-stakes drama. Environmental effects also contribute to the overall atmosphere, particularly within the compound where much of the story unfolds. Subtle digital manipulation of lighting, shadows, and background elements reinforces the psychological pressure on the protagonist. For example, minor adjustments to window views, outdoor scenery, or the layout of interior spaces are used to emphasize isolation or confinement without drawing attention to the technology behind the shots. These enhancements are subtle but effective, supporting the narrative and mood rather than becoming a distraction. One of the film's strengths is the restraint in applying VFX. Unlike action-heavy blockbusters, HIM prioritizes psychological tension and character-driven storytelling, and the visual effects serve this purpose rather than dominating the screen. Sequences that required compositing, such as scenes showing injury recovery or subtle alterations in perspective to emphasize intimidation, are executed with care. The digital work is largely seamless, avoiding the jarring or artificial feeling that can sometimes pull viewers out of the narrative. When effects are used, they enhance the story's stakes and emotional weight, supporting viewers' immersion rather than calling attention to themselves. Certain standout moments demonstrate technical brilliance. For instance, the attack that leaves Cam injured is enhanced digitally to maximize impact while preserving actor safety, showing a careful balance of realism and cinematic tension. Similarly, scenes where Cam navigates the compound or experiences intense psychological stress occasionally use subtle digital enhancements to exaggerate spatial disorientation or emotional intensity, reinforcing the film's themes of control and manipulation. Overall, the visual effects and CGI in HIM, 2025, are carefully calibrated to complement practical effects and serve the narrative. They add realism, heighten tension, and subtly reinforce thematic elements such as isolation, vulnerability, and psychological pressure. By focusing on integration and restraint, the film avoids the pitfalls of overuse, ensuring that digital work supports storytelling rather than overshadowing it. The result is a seamless blend of practical and digital techniques that enhances immersion, maintains believability, and contributes to the film's overall impact without distracting from the performances or narrative. In HIM, 2025, set design and locations play a crucial role in establishing atmosphere, supporting narrative tension, and enhancing character development. The production design team carefully balances real locations with constructed sets to create a believable and immersive world that reflects both the physical and psychological stakes of the story. From the expansive football fields and training facilities to the isolated compound where Cameron Cade's journey unfolds, every space is designed to communicate character, mood, and thematic undertones without relying on dialogue alone. The compound itself is a central visual element, designed to feel both luxurious and oppressive. Interiors are meticulously detailed, with furniture, lighting, and decor chosen to reflect the controlling environment Cam enters. Subtle choices, such as the positioning of furniture, narrow corridors, and the limited access to natural light, emphasize confinement and the psychological pressure of being under constant scrutiny. Props, including personal items, training equipment, and everyday objects, are carefully selected to convey status, obsession, or a sense of history, providing clues to the personalities and routines of the characters who inhabit these spaces. The set dressing adds texture and believability, ensuring that the environment feels lived in rather than artificially constructed. Real-world locations, such as football stadiums, urban environments, and training grounds, are used to ground the story in authenticity. Wide shots of fields, locker rooms, and public spaces create a sense of scale and realism, showing the contrast between Cam's public persona and the private intensity of his journey. These locations provide a tangible backdrop that supports the narrative, making the stakes feel immediate and relatable. The cinematography works in tandem with these spaces, highlighting architectural lines, open spaces, and confined areas to reinforce themes of ambition, isolation, and control. Studio-built sets are used strategically for scenes that require precise control over lighting, camera movement, and actor performance. By constructing interiors for the compound and private rooms, the production team can manipulate space to create dramatic compositions and control visual storytelling. These sets allow for subtle shifts in color, lighting, and texture that enhance mood and emotional impact, while still feeling consistent with the film's real-world locations. The seamless integration of studio sets with on-location footage maintains visual continuity and preserves audience immersion. Small design details contribute significantly to the narrative and character understanding. The condition of the training equipment, the personal touches in Cam's quarters, and the design of shared spaces all subtly communicate power dynamics, character priorities, and emotional tone. For example, tightly arranged furniture and dim lighting in the compound's hallways reinforce a sense of surveillance and control, while brighter, open locations during training montages suggest freedom, progress, and personal achievement. These contrasts enhance the story's psychological depth and make the environments feel actively involved in the narrative rather than passive backgrounds. Overall, the set design and locations in HIM, 2025, effectively support the story, characters, and emotional tone. Thoughtful combinations of real locations and studio-built environments provide both authenticity and controlled cinematic impact. Careful attention to props, textures, and spatial arrangement ensures that every setting conveys history, personality, and tension, allowing actors to inhabit their reality fully. By integrating design choices with narrative, cinematography, and character arcs, the production design enhances immersion, reinforces thematic concerns, and elevates the overall cinematic experience, making the world of HIM both believable and psychologically resonant. In HIM, 2025, the dialogue and script are carefully crafted to support character development, narrative momentum, and thematic resonance. The film's writing favors naturalistic exchanges, where conversations feel grounded in the reality of the character's environment while subtly revealing their inner lives. Cameron Cade's lines, for example, reflect a mixture of confidence, ambition, and vulnerability, allowing the audience to understand his motivations and insecurities without overt exposition. The dialogue often serves multiple purposes, advancing the plot while simultaneously offering insight into personality, power dynamics, and relational tension. Isaiah White's dialogue is particularly notable for its layered quality. On the surface, his words often appear supportive or motivational, reflecting his role as mentor and coach, but underlying tones of manipulation and threat gradually emerge. Subtext is a key strength of the script, with many of Isaiah's lines carrying double meanings that the audience perceives even if Cam initially does not. This subtlety reinforces the film's exploration of control, influence, and psychological pressure, demonstrating how dialogue can communicate tension and character without resorting to blunt exposition. Supporting characters also benefit from scriptwriting that reflects individuality and context. Julia Fox's character, Elsie White, often conveys judgment, concern, or complicity through measured, carefully chosen words. The writing ensures that even minor characters have distinct voices that contribute to atmosphere and thematic depth. Side conversations, hallway exchanges, and offhand remarks serve to populate the world realistically while often hinting at broader narrative or thematic concerns, showing that the script is attentive to both macro and micro storytelling elements. Silence and pauses are as important as spoken lines in HIM. Several scenes rely on unspoken communication, allowing gestures, glances, or body language to carry the emotional weight. Moments of hesitation, subtle reactions, or unvoiced tension often speak louder than words, reinforcing the psychological drama and heightening suspense. The script's use of restraint in dialogue allows the audience to engage actively with the story, interpreting what is implied rather than having every emotion spelled out. This approach contributes to a sense of realism and maintains the intensity of the narrative, particularly in confrontational or morally ambiguous sequences. Certain sequences demonstrate the script's efficiency in using dialogue to propel the plot. Exchanges during training, confrontations, or pivotal decision-making moments are concise yet packed with information, revealing both character intent and narrative stakes. Lines that might seem casual or supportive on the surface often carry subtextual pressure, driving tension and conflict organically. These passages illustrate how well the writing integrates character psychology with plot progression, ensuring that dialogue is functional, engaging, and thematically relevant. While the script is largely strong, there are occasional moments where dialogue verges on the nose or slightly repetitive, particularly in scenes that attempt to clarify character relationships or internal states too directly. These instances are infrequent and do not significantly detract from the overall impact, but a tighter focus or minor rewriting could have made certain emotional beats more potent or elegant. Overall, the dialogue strikes a balance between naturalism, subtext, and narrative efficiency, giving actors the material to deliver nuanced, compelling performances. In summary, the script and dialogue of HIM, 2025, effectively combine character insight, thematic layering, and plot propulsion. Subtext, careful phrasing, and purposeful pauses allow conversations to communicate tension, ambition, and psychological pressure, while silence and gestures complement spoken words. Minor areas for tightening exist, but overall, the writing supports both performance and storytelling, creating a naturalistic, layered, and emotionally resonant cinematic experience that engages audiences on multiple levels. HIM, 2025, operates as a hybrid of psychological thriller, sports drama, and horror, blending elements from multiple genres to create a distinctive cinematic experience. The film honors genre expectations while also experimenting with narrative and stylistic choices, offering viewers both familiar beats and unexpected twists. In its thriller and horror dimensions, HIM effectively builds tension, suspense, and unease through controlled pacing, psychological manipulation, and atmospheric design. Classic thriller beats, such as escalating danger, moral ambiguity, and moments of intense confrontation, are handled with precision, keeping audiences on edge without relying on jump scares or gratuitous shock. The horror elements are subtle but pervasive, emphasizing the psychological strain, isolation, and manipulative dynamics rather than overt gore, which refreshes the genre by focusing on fear rooted in character and circumstance rather than spectacle. The sports drama aspect of HIM is equally strong, providing a grounded and realistic portrayal of professional athletic ambition. Training sequences, competition, and injury recovery are depicted with authenticity, adhering to audience expectations for a sports narrative. The film excels in capturing the physical intensity, emotional highs, and ethical dilemmas associated with athletic pursuits. By integrating these sequences into a broader psychological and thriller framework, HIM elevates the genre, showing how physical and mental challenges intersect and influence character development. The combination of physical action with psychological tension allows the film to appeal to fans of multiple genres, maintaining engagement across narrative layers. One of the film's strengths is its avoidance of common clichés. While sports and psychological thrillers often rely on predictable arcs, underdog triumphs, mentor betrayal, or sudden plot twists, HIM subverts these expectations by presenting morally complex characters whose motivations are ambiguous. Cameron Cade's journey is not a simple narrative of victory or defeat. Rather, it explores nuanced themes of control, identity, and personal autonomy. Similarly, Isaiah White, while initially appearing as a traditional mentor figure, gradually reveals manipulative and morally ambiguous traits, challenging audience assumptions and preventing the story from falling into conventional archetypes. This approach adds depth and unpredictability, refreshing familiar genre tropes and creating a more sophisticated, character-driven experience. HIM also plays with audience expectations in terms of pacing and tension. Thriller and horror sequences are interspersed with sports drama and character-driven moments, creating a rhythm that alternates between suspense, reflection, and physical intensity. The film resists the temptation to over-explain or resolve every ambiguity, instead leaving space for interpretation, which aligns with psychological thriller conventions while providing a fresh perspective on sports narratives. This balancing act demonstrates careful genre blending, showing that the film respects audience intelligence and genre conventions while exploring innovative storytelling techniques. While HIM largely succeeds in genre execution, some viewers may find its hybrid approach unconventional, particularly those expecting a straightforward horror or sports film. The slow-building tension and focus on psychological complexity may challenge audience expectations of immediate thrills or clear-cut triumphs. However, these risks pay off for viewers who appreciate nuanced storytelling, character complexity, and thematic depth, offering a rich, layered experience that rewards careful attention. Overall, HIM, 2025, effectively honors genre expectations while pushing boundaries through hybridization and subversion of clichés. It delivers the suspense and tension of psychological thrillers, the authenticity and intensity of sports drama, and the subtle unease of horror, all while maintaining originality and thematic resonance. By blending familiar beats with inventive choices, the film engages audiences across genres, refreshing conventional tropes without abandoning the core pleasures of each category, creating a cinematic experience that is both satisfying and intellectually stimulating. HIM, 2025, engages with social and cultural commentary in ways that extend beyond its surface story of athletic ambition and psychological tension. At its core, the film explores the pressures of professional sports, the influence of celebrity culture, and the dynamics of power and control in high-stakes environments. By depicting Cameron Cade's intense journey under the guidance of Isaiah White, the film raises questions about the ethics of mentorship, the manipulation inherent in competitive industries, and the cost of idolization. These themes resonate culturally, reflecting real-world concerns about the treatment of young athletes, the psychological toll of fame, and the ethical responsibilities of those in positions of authority. The film handles these topics with sensitivity, particularly in its portrayal of mentorship and coercion. Isaiah's character serves as both a symbol of opportunity and a cautionary figure, demonstrating how charisma and power can mask manipulation. This duality encourages viewers to think critically about the pressures placed on young talent and the societal tendency to equate success with unquestioned authority. By showing Cam's struggle to assert autonomy while navigating external expectations, the narrative invites reflection on personal agency, resilience, and ethical decision-making within hierarchical structures. HIM also engages with cultural commentary on obsession and idolization. The film depicts how public fascination with athletic achievement and celebrity status can influence behavior, shape identity, and distort moral judgment. Cam's admiration for Isaiah mirrors broader societal patterns, where individuals are often encouraged to prioritize achievement and recognition over personal well-being or ethical clarity. Through visual storytelling, character interactions, and the environment of the compound, the film illustrates the subtle ways social pressures operate, providing a critique of cultures that valorize performance and conformity over individual health and integrity. Gender dynamics and representation are addressed indirectly. While the primary focus is on male athletes, interactions with supporting characters, including female figures, reveal tensions around influence, control, and relational power. These dynamics are not heavily didactic but provide context for the social environment in which Cam operates, suggesting the broader implications of authority, mentorship, and exploitation in gendered spaces. The film's subtle approach allows for commentary without heavy-handedness, though some viewers may wish for deeper exploration of these issues. Despite its strengths, HIM occasionally risks oversimplifying complex social issues. The psychological manipulation and power struggles, while compelling, are presented in a somewhat contained narrative framework that may not fully capture the systemic factors affecting athletes or cultural dynamics of celebrity influence. Some moral ambiguities are explored primarily through individual relationships rather than broader societal structures, which limits the scope of commentary but keeps the focus tightly on character-driven storytelling. Timely moments in the film highlight issues of mental health, ambition, and accountability. Cam's injury and the subsequent pressure he faces underscore real-world concerns about physical and psychological strain in competitive sports. These sequences resonate culturally, as audiences increasingly recognize the need for mental health awareness and ethical responsibility in professional environments. Conversely, a few moments may feel slightly tone-deaf if interpreted as glamorizing excessive pressure or overlooking systemic inequities, but these are balanced by the film's overall emphasis on consequence and personal reflection. Overall, HIM, 2025, integrates social and cultural commentary effectively, prompting reflection on ambition, power, idolization, and ethical responsibility. The film sensitively addresses psychological pressure, mentorship, and the impact of celebrity culture while using character-driven storytelling to explore these themes in a relatable, human context. By weaving these issues into narrative and visual design, the movie encourages viewers to consider both individual and societal responsibilities, making its commentary timely, thought-provoking, and integrated into the emotional core of the story. HIM, 2025, is designed to engage audiences on multiple emotional and intellectual levels, offering scenes that provoke strong reactions and invite discussion long after the credits roll. The film's tension, psychological complexity, and character-driven storytelling create moments that can make viewers gasp, empathize, or reflect critically on what they have just seen. One of the most gripping aspects is the depiction of Cameron Cade's vulnerability under pressure, particularly during sequences where his physical abilities are tested or when he confronts the manipulative authority of Isaiah White. These moments generate suspense and anticipation, encouraging viewers to lean in and invest emotionally, often eliciting gasps as Cam faces seemingly insurmountable challenges or moral dilemmas. Humor is subtle but effectively placed, primarily emerging through character interactions and situational irony rather than overt comedy. Small exchanges between Cam and other athletes, or moments highlighting the eccentricities of Isaiah and the compound staff, provide brief relief from the building tension. These lighter moments are strategically positioned to humanize the characters and enhance audience connection, making them feel invested not just in the plot, but in the personalities navigating the story. These beats also enhance rewatchability, as viewers may catch nuances in delivery, expressions, or timing that were missed on a first viewing. Emotional resonance is heightened during sequences that focus on personal struggle and growth. Cameron's injury, moments of self-doubt, and instances of resilience create scenes that are likely to evoke empathy and even tears. The film emphasizes internal conflict, allowing audiences to relate to his frustrations, ambitions, and triumphs on a personal level. Scenes that showcase breakthroughs or moments of moral courage are particularly impactful, offering satisfying emotional payoffs while reinforcing the film's broader themes of autonomy, perseverance, and self-discovery. These sequences are built to linger in the mind, encouraging reflection and discussion about character choices and consequences. Several moments are deliberately structured to spark debate and fan theories. The ambiguity surrounding Isaiah's methods, his true motivations, and the ethical boundaries of his mentorship invite speculation about the nature of control, influence, and morality within the story. Subtle visual cues, layered dialogue, and withheld information create opportunities for viewers to interpret events in multiple ways, making the film fertile ground for analysis and conversation. Fans are likely to discuss the psychological and ethical dimensions of key interactions, comparing interpretations and debating which decisions were justified or inevitable. These discussion-worthy beats increase engagement beyond the theater or screen, extending the life of the film in social and online contexts. Rewatchability is also enhanced by attention to detail in production design, cinematography, and sound. Certain sequences reward viewers who notice background elements, foreshadowing, or recurring motifs in music and visual composition. These details add layers to the story that may not be immediately apparent, encouraging repeat viewing to fully appreciate the craftsmanship and thematic depth. Iconic visual moments, intense confrontations, and emotionally charged reactions are likely to be gifted or shared online, cementing the film's presence in popular culture and audience memory. Overall, HIM, 2025, succeeds in audience engagement by combining suspense, emotional depth, subtle humor, and interpretive complexity. Its carefully constructed moments create gasps, empathy, laughter, and debate, while layered storytelling and attention to detail reward multiple viewings. Signature scenes are designed to linger, spark conversation, and invite analysis, making the film not just a viewing experience but an interactive emotional and intellectual journey for audiences. HIM, 2025, can be fruitfully compared to both contemporary psychological thrillers and sports dramas, as well as to the director's previous works, revealing where it succeeds and where it may fall short. In terms of genre, the film draws clear inspiration from tense, character-driven thrillers that explore ambition, manipulation, and identity. Comparisons to films such as Black Swan, Whiplash, or Foxcatcher are natural, as all examine the psychological pressures imposed by authority figures and the toll of striving for excellence. Like these films, HIM emphasizes the interplay between personal ambition and external control, using tight framing, atmospheric lighting, and deliberate pacing to immerse audiences in the protagonist's internal and external conflicts. Where HIM stands out is in blending these psychological thriller elements with a sports drama framework, creating a hybrid experience that juxtaposes physical exertion and competitive ambition with intense psychological manipulation. The director's prior works often focused on character-driven narratives with strong visual composition, but HIM represents a more ambitious fusion of genres. While earlier films may have leaned on either suspense or dramatic intensity, HIM attempts to balance both while integrating action, athletic sequences, and nuanced character development. In this respect, it reinvents familiar formulas by layering multiple narrative and emotional textures. Training montages, injury recovery sequences, and public performance moments are handled with realism and pacing that resonate with sports drama fans, while psychological tension, moral ambiguity, and manipulation speak directly to thriller audiences. This combination enhances narrative complexity and audience engagement, differentiating HIM from more straightforward entries in either genre. The film borrows smartly from established techniques while maintaining a distinctive identity. The use of mentorship as a central dynamic echoes the intense student-teacher relationship seen in films like Whiplash, but HIM distinguishes itself by exploring ethical boundaries more broadly and embedding these tensions within the context of celebrity culture and media scrutiny. Similarly, the psychological manipulation present in Foxcatcher is mirrored in Isaiah White's character, yet HIM integrates this influence into the physical and social pressures of professional sports, giving the story a unique texture that blends mental, emotional, and corporeal stakes. These deliberate nods to previous successes enhance audience familiarity while allowing for inventive narrative exploration. There are moments where HIM struggles to match the ambition or execution of its influences. Certain sequences, while visually or thematically compelling, occasionally feel constrained by pacing or subtle over-reliance on exposition. The hybrid approach, while generally effective, risks diluting the intensity of either genre at points, leaving thriller sequences less harrowing or sports drama moments less emotionally expansive than comparable standalone films. Additionally, the psychological complexity of characters, while largely compelling, may not reach the same depth as the most lauded films in the genre, particularly in terms of long-term character arcs or moral ambiguity. These limitations are minor but notable when evaluating the film against highly polished predecessors. Despite these small shortcomings, HIM achieves a distinctive presence within contemporary cinema by merging familiar elements in fresh ways. Its layered exploration of ambition, control, and identity, combined with careful attention to athletic realism and psychological tension, sets it apart from purely genre-focused films. Audience engagement, attention to detail, and hybridization give HIM a strong identity, ensuring it stands in conversation with predecessors while contributing original insight into the pressures of performance and the consequences of idolization. Overall, comparing HIM, 2025, to similar films highlights both its strengths and areas for improvement. It borrows effectively from genre conventions and notable predecessors, reinvents certain formulas by blending psychological thriller and sports drama, and presents a unique thematic perspective. While it occasionally falls short of the depth or intensity achieved by earlier films, it succeeds in creating a compelling, layered narrative that rewards attention and situates itself meaningfully within broader cinematic discussions. HIM, 2025, employs a rich tapestry of symbolism and metaphors that deepen the narrative and provide insight into character psychology and thematic concerns. One of the most prominent motifs is the recurring use of mirrors and reflections, which appear in both personal and professional settings. Mirrors symbolize self-perception, identity, and the duality between Cam's public persona and his private struggles. Early in the film, scenes where Cam trains or evaluates himself in mirrors highlight his ambition and self-critique, emphasizing the pressure he places on himself and the distorted reflection of success he aspires to. Later, mirrors also represent surveillance and manipulation, particularly in the compound, suggesting that his every action is observed and that personal identity is constantly mediated by external expectations. Color is another deliberate symbol throughout the film. The film contrasts warm, natural tones in outdoor and public training spaces with cold, muted hues within the compound or private rooms. Warm tones evoke freedom, growth, and potential, while the colder palette reinforces feelings of isolation, control, and psychological tension. The shift in color temperature often corresponds to Cam's emotional state, subtly signaling moments of vulnerability, fear, or empowerment. Red appears selectively during intense or high-stake sequences, symbolizing danger, pressure, and moral challenge, alerting the audience to pivotal narrative or psychological moments. Objects and props also carry symbolic weight. The football itself functions not just as a tool of sport but as a metaphor for ambition, pressure, and the stakes of performance. Scenes that emphasize Cam handling, losing, or manipulating the ball reflect his control over his own destiny and the external forces that challenge it. Similarly, the compound's architecture, with its narrow corridors, closed doors, and controlled access, acts as a metaphor for restriction, confinement, and the psychological manipulation exerted by Isaiah White. These visual elements reinforce themes of power, surveillance, and the tension between autonomy and control. Repetition of certain actions and visual cues serves as an additional metaphorical layer. For instance, recurring shots of clocks, timers, or countdowns underscore the constant pressure of time and performance, emphasizing that Cam's challenges are not only physical but also temporal and psychological. Repeated gestures, such as glances, nods, or certain training rituals, signal evolving relationships and shifts in power dynamics, inviting the audience to interpret subtext and anticipate character development. These repeated motifs create cohesion and provide visual shorthand for the film's central themes. Finally, some symbols are intentionally left unresolved, creating space for interpretation and discussion. Ambiguities in character actions, environmental cues, or unresolved visual metaphors allow the audience to reflect on the ethical and psychological dimensions of ambition, control, and identity. HIM uses symbolism not only to enrich the narrative visually but also to reinforce emotional and thematic resonance, rewarding attentive viewing and encouraging repeated engagement with the story. HIM, 2025, exists as a standalone film rather than part of a larger franchise, but it subtly situates itself within a recognizable cultural and historical context that adds depth to its narrative. The story reflects contemporary issues in professional sports, celebrity culture, and mentorship, grounding its drama in a world that feels both timely and relevant. While it does not rely on prior installments or existing storylines, attentive viewers may notice thematic and stylistic nods to earlier sports dramas and psychological thrillers, creating a sense of continuity within genre conventions. These callbacks are primarily symbolic or tonal rather than direct references, serving to situate him in a broader cinematic conversation rather than within a serialized narrative universe. From a historical and cultural perspective, the film draws inspiration from real-world athletic pressures, professional sports training, and high-profile mentorship dynamics. The depiction of intense training regimens, injury recovery, and media scrutiny mirrors contemporary issues faced by athletes, providing authenticity without portraying a specific historical event or individual. The filmmakers have made deliberate choices to dramatize these elements, amplifying conflict and psychological tension to serve the narrative. These creative liberties allow the story to explore universal themes of ambition, control, and personal growth while maintaining believability and emotional resonance. The Compound, for example, is a fictionalized environment designed to heighten tension and thematic stakes, even if similar structures exist in real athletic or performance-based settings. Easter eggs and subtle references within the film reward attentive viewers. Visual cues, such as sports memorabilia, newspaper clippings, or media coverage within the story, hint at broader cultural touchpoints and contextualize Cameron Cade's journey. These details enrich the narrative by connecting it to recognizable real-world pressures without distracting from the fictional story. Fans of the genre may also notice parallels to classic films and archetypal character dynamics, offering an added layer of appreciation for viewers familiar with sports dramas or psychological thrillers. Timeline placement is contemporary, reflecting the modern landscape of competitive athletics and the social dynamics of celebrity culture. The filmmakers deliberately avoid tying the story to a specific year or historical incident, allowing the narrative to feel universal while remaining grounded in present-day realities. This choice enables the film to comment on ongoing societal pressures and ethical considerations in mentorship and performance culture without being constrained by historical accuracy or biographical fidelity. Overall, HIM, 2025, succeeds in situating itself within a recognizable cultural and thematic context while remaining a standalone story. It draws on real-world inspirations, genre conventions, and subtle Easter eggs to enhance engagement, reward attentive viewers, and provide a sense of continuity with the broader cinematic landscape. Historical liberties and fictionalized settings are employed thoughtfully to heighten drama, reinforce themes, and ensure that the story resonates emotionally and culturally without being bound to a specific real-world event or franchise continuity. As of now, detailed financial information regarding the production budget and box office performance of HIM, 2025, is not publicly available. The film is scheduled for release on September 19, 2025, and its financial details are expected to become clearer following its theatrical run. Given the film's genre, a psychological horror sports drama, and its involvement of notable talents such as Marlon Wayans and Tyriq Withers, it is anticipated that the production budget will be moderate, focusing on atmospheric tension and character-driven storytelling rather than large-scale action sequences. The success of the film at the box office will likely depend on audience reception, critical reviews, and effective marketing strategies. The involvement of Jordan Peele's Monkey Paw Productions may also attract a dedicated audience interested in innovative horror narratives. In summary, while specific financial details for HIM, 2025, are not yet available, its performance at the box office will be influenced by factors such as audience engagement, critical acclaim, and marketing effectiveness. HIM, 2025, is set to be released in theaters on September 19, 2025. As of now, there is no information available regarding its availability on streaming platforms or for digital purchase. Therefore, the primary way to experience the film initially will be through its theatrical release. For those planning to watch HIM, the cinematic experience is likely to enhance the film's atmosphere. The movie's blend of psychological horror and sports drama, combined with its intense visual style, suggests that viewing it on the big screen will offer a more immersive experience. The sound design and cinematography, which are crucial to building tension and delivering the film's emotional impact, will be best appreciated in a theater setting. Once the film completes its theatrical run, it may become available on various streaming platforms or for digital purchase. However, specific details about these subsequent release options have not been announced yet. To stay updated on where and when HIM will be available for home viewing, it's advisable to monitor official announcements from Universal Pictures and major streaming services. In summary, to experience HIM, 2025, in its intended format, watching it in theaters upon its release on September 19 is the recommended option. Keep an eye out for future updates regarding its availability on streaming platforms or for digital purchase after its theatrical run. If you enjoyed this video and would like us to provide reviews of every kind of movie, please remember to like, comment, share, and subscribe to our channel. Have a great day, and we'll see you in the next video.
Goodbye.